Hey there, it's Roger, creator of the Azure Sandbox. I'm back, and we are working on our VM MS SQL configuration, and we're going to start here in the Getting Started section for our deployment. So what I'm going to do is launch VS Code, because that's where I do all my work against the sandbox, using the Windows subsystem for Linux. And so here's the configuration we're going to be working on, which is VM MS SQL. Okay, and this is all the code associated with that configuration. So the first thing we need to do is change our directory, our working directory, to that. And as you can see, set this down. The files that are listed here are the same as that are shown in our Explorer view, so we're in the right place. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is set up our service principal name secret. The reason why I need to do that is I've exited VS Code since the last time I did a deployment, so that environment variable now no longer has a value in it. So we have to reinitialize that value in that environment variable. So I'm going to pause the video while I go get the value of that secret, and I'll be right back. Set up that environment variable, tfr arm client secret equals the value of my service principal secret. And I'll go change that after this video so we don't have any enterprising young hackers trying to get into my service principal. Okay, next what we're going to do is we are going to run Bootstrap, I believe. Let's go make sure. Yep, Bootstrap is the next thing. So I'll do a ./bootstrap.sh, and we'll go ahead and run that. So it looks like we've got a bunch of values from two of our previous configurations, VNet Shared and VNet App. So it only really needs one thing, which is the name of the virtual machine, the SQL Server virtual machine. We're going to call it MS SQL Win1. And off we go. Bootstrap is getting some secrets. It's uploading some scripts to storage. It's going and configuring Azure Automation desired state configuration with some additional modules that are required. The first one is networking DSC, and this is the module that we use to configure the Windows firewall on the SQL Server VM to allow connections into the machine over port 1433, which is the default port for SQL Server. Okay, so networking DSC module has been successfully provisioned into Azure Automation. And the second module that we need to provision is SQL Server DSC. And we use this to do some configuration of SQL Server as well, which we'll walk through later in the code walkthrough. Okay, looks like SQL Server DSC module provisioning is wrapping up here. And next we've imported a desired state configuration file, and we're compiling that, and that will be used to register the VM with Azure Automation desired state configuration and configure it. So that's the MS SQL VM configuration, and we'll do a code walkthrough of that later. All right, looks like that compilation job is wrapping up. So that's ready to go. And now we should be fully configured. Azure Automation desired state configuration should be fully configured. And bootstrap.sh finished up successfully. And here's our terraform.tfvars file that got created as part of that process. Okay, so now that we've done our bootstrap, we can start thinking about applying this configuration. So let's do a Terraform init and initialize our providers. And then we can do a Terraform validate to make sure it's syntactically correct. And it's always a good idea to do a Terraform plan to see what this applying this configuration would do, what would change on the back end. And we see it would add 7 resources, it would change nothing, and it would destroy nothing. So that's definitely what I'm expecting. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Terraform apply. And off we go. So first thing that gets created is the NIC for the VM, and then a couple of disks, one for the SQL Server data disk and one for the SQL Server log disk. And I use a specific naming convention for them so that I can pick them out and treat them differently when we run the automation. And we're out provisioning the SQL Server VM. Okay, you can see here that we're registering the VM with Azure Automation desired state configuration using a Terraform provisioner. And this can actually take quite some time. We'll bring the video back when this is complete. Okay, the machine's been registered with Azure Automation desired state configuration. It actually happened quite a bit faster than I expected. And now we're attaching the data and the log disks to the VM. And after those are attached, I then push a script using the custom script extension onto the VM to go configure, do a bunch of SQL Server post configuration activities. So we'll have a look at that when we do the code review. So the disk attachments should be complete here shortly. So the log disk is attached. Okay, the data disk is attached, and now we're pushing the script on there using the custom script extension. And that's a PowerShell script that does a whole bunch of different stuff, which we'll go through in the code review. Okay, so the script completed successfully, and our SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine is successfully provisioned. So we've got 7 resources added, 0 changed, 0 destroyed. That's what we're looking for. So at this point, I think the documentation suggests that we go take a look at the terraform.tf state file here. Just see what's in there, so we can do a Terraform state list. And this will show the 7 resources that were provisioned. So some secrets, some managed disks, a NIC, some managed disk attachments, a custom script extension, and a Windows VM. All right, so we'll pick up in the smoke testing in the next video.